Welcome to Buckets. We are back. Your daily NBA betting podcast. The All-Star game has come and gone, and we are back at it like we never left. I'm your host tonight, Brandon Kravitz, and I have got a couple of the best with me right here. Prop analyzer Joe Dellera from the Cash Stat podcast, and market analyzer Michael Fiddle. You can catch his live stream NBA betting with Fiddle on Twitter. What did we learn tonight? Because we haven't watched any NBA basketball that counts for real in over a week. But Fiddle, what has the break taught you? Did the reset do you any favors? You look fresh, by the way. Did you get a fade?
I did it myself, actually. So yes, plus EV move. Barbershop's in my own bathroom. Break was nice. I did a little bit of work.
Amen to that. By the way, same exact answer. When I started shaving my head, I have saved myself so much money. I've actually done the count.
A really good razor, and I just buzz it, and I go like 2s on the side and 3 on top. It looks, I
saved like $5,000 in 5 years not getting my haircut.
That's probably honestly like pretty accurate. Like I go to my guy Vinny, and I think I give him, it's like $45. I give him like a $15 tip. So it's
but Joe, you got a nice coif. I don't think you're just going just straight buzz cut.
Seriously, it's worth it, Joe.
Great. The place is great. They gave me some bourbon around the holidays. Like, here you go.
my hairline was starting to run faster than LaMelo Ball in the scene of a car accident. So I had to
we are off to a hot start tonight. Break was good. I did some work-life balance stuff and just got away from it. I'm generally a workaholic. It's the New Yorker in me, so I struggle to actually take time away whenever there's still action going on. I still constantly looking, and I disguise that by telling myself I don't know how long my edge will last, so I better keep working. But I did turn 34 last weekend, so I do have a nice trivia question for you guys.
All right, let's hear it.
34 is one of the best numbers for players that have worn 34 in NBA history. You guys want to try and guess my starting lineup of players who wore 34?
Oh, Jesus.
Definitely Shaq is on that.
Shaq is my 5.
I'm trying to think of all the players that have 34.
One of them shares a studio with Shaq quite often.
Oh, Charles Barkley.
Yeah.
Barkley.
Giannis, right?
Giannis is on my squad.
Oh my God. What is we hooping? I can't think of point guards.
There's 3 more Hall of Famers.
The glove wore 20.
Hakeem.
Yeah,
That's going to be my 6th man.
I think I'd start Hakeem over Shaq. Hot take, but
the only other number that's like popping in my head is Nolan Ryan. Cross sporting this.
Did Ray Allen ever wear 34?
Ray Allen's going to be my point guard. We're going with the bigger lineup, and give me one of Ray Allen's teammates.
Michael Redd.
Paul Pierce it is at the 2. So my starting lineup of 34s is Ray Allen, Paul Pierce, Charles Barkley at the 3, Giannis or Shaq or Hakeem at my 4 and 5, and one of them coming off the bench. We are quite loaded at 34.
I can see Joe sweating. He's like, whose rebounds over am I supposed to bet on this team?
Oh my God. Or just parlay everybody's alt under. It's like it's going to be distributed.
That is great. Well, happy birthday to you, Fiddle. It seems as though you have enjoyed it in cooking up that trip. Now that's how I know you were bored, that you cooked that up. What about you, Joe? How'd you enjoy the break?
What did I do? I feel like it just was a blur. Like it just went by. I slept. I cut into my sleep debt on my Oura ring, so that was good. I cut it down from like 11 hours to 5 hours, and then like last night I slept like 4, so they just went immediately torpedoed. So I felt good. I had a lot of energy for about like a day and a half, and that was about it. So started looking at lines early, and it's nice to come into this episode very prepared. Honestly, like I was like, we're not scrambling. We have all the player props up. So I was my own worst enemy with that.
Yeah, it is nice that for beyond the last 48 hours, we've had everything that we need on the menu for us to pick through over the last couple of days or watch how the market is reacting to certain things. And that's what we're going to deliver to you on tonight's episode. I spent some time at the zoo this weekend, and now I get to work with these two animals. So let's hop to it. Don't forget that you can check out Action Pro right now. You can get $20 off an annual subscription. Just visit actionnetwork.com/pro and use the promo code POD20 to get started. That's $20 off Action Pro with the promo code POD20 at actionnetwork.com/pro. Time for some plays. We've been waiting a week to do this. 3-star, 2-star, 1-star. Fiddle, what's your 3-star play as we make our way back to the court?
So I'm going to go with the Houston Rockets and Charlotte Hornets over 216.5. Now I know Diabate is out, Bridges is going to be out, but it seems like LaMelo is okay and he is going to play after suffering the car accident. There was a huge market move on Houston against the spread in money line when that car accident news broke. We're now starting to get some shades of Charlotte money coming back in, so I think that's a good sign towards LaMelo still playing. His props are priced, so I do think those are all solid indicators that LaMelo is going to go. I have this number prior to any manual adjustments at like closer to 220, 221.5. So I think the Diabate and Bridges downgrades are just over accentuated by the market. We've already seen this climb from 215.5 to 216.5, so directionally correct here. And I do think the Rockets are going to run with some pace coming out of the break, should be a little bit fresher. They played 2 games against the Clippers right before heading into the break, and that's like notoriously one of the slowest paced teams in the NBA right now. So think that they're going to push the pace a little bit here. I think Kalkbrenner being in for the Hornets and then him being like the lone big that'll play some heavy minutes. He's an elite finisher around the rim, even for such a young guy. So they're going to play small or they're going to have a great, finisher around the rim. So I think this is a clear over spot. There's going to be some defensive downgrades. There's going to be some tempo upgrades. So give me the over 216.5 on Houston and Charlotte.
I was looking into this one. 78% of Hornets games have gone over that number. So they have been a team that has definitely catered towards your play here. 233 is the average finish for Charlotte Hornets games this season. These two teams played 13 days ago. The total was 218.5, and we've taken one of the best defenders in the game in Diabate out of the mix. So it makes sense. Number goes down to then hit the over on that. Joe, any pushback on this?
No, I like it. I think Fiddle's cap has a lot more to do with some of the pace and like the health of these guys. So I have a 1-star play in this game, but I'll save that for later unless you want to do it now.
No, let's save it. I have a habit of jumping around with these stars and then I twist myself into a knot. So let's hit your 3-star play.
All right. So obviously this is a Knicks pod, so I got to start off with a Knicks bet. And my best bet, I like Mitchell Robinson over 7.5 rebounds. You can get this still. There's some plus money out there right now. The thing to me is, I think Fiddle and I talked about this on his show the other day. I think people are kind of forgetting that Jalen Duren and Isaiah Stewart are both suspended for this game. So Detroit's really going to be looking at just like B-Ball Paul, maybe some Asar Thompson on the interior. Those are their rebounders right now. And to me, I think that this just sets up as a great opportunity for New York. Detroit's still good enough to keep this game close, which I think is significant because then we'll probably see still like that 20-minute rotation for Mitch. But given the way his rotation kind of is when he checks in, checks out, he's generally still going to play pretty much his 20 minutes either way. He's averaging 9 rebounds per game, hit this mark in over 60% of games this season. So we're getting plus money on this. I think it's really like a rebound too low, especially given the matchup. So I think that it's competitive. I think that Detroit is still going to be a team that is generating looks towards the basket. And it's a team that I'm not as concerned about where you could say, well, they're just going to run 5 out because they just have a bunch of guys that aren't really capable of running 5 out. You're not going to run Asar Thompson on the perimeter the entire game. It's untenable. You can't do it. So I think that this is a good spot for Mitchell Robinson on over 7.5 rebounds. And I really like it at plus money.
I'm surprised the number is where it is, given the fact that the Pistons are without 2 of their best rebounders.
Yeah.
And Robinson's already averaging more than this in a standard game.
Yeah, it didn't make any sense to me, like, generally, unless there's a little bit of concern that New York just kind of runs away with it. But at the same time, I think that this is still an opportunity, because if New York's kind of running away with it, probably means Detroit's missing a lot of shots. So I like the spot for Mitch. I just think the line is a bit low.
Detroit's the third best rebounding team in the NBA, but that's with the guys that
Yeah,
do
like,
most of the rebounding.
exactly. Like, it just doesn't matter to me that those guys aren't in. And then I'm a little bit less concerned about some, like, either potential foul trouble or anything like that too, because I just don't think we're going to see the same amount of lob opportunities that we would have seen with Duran or even Isaiah Stewart in there. So Cade's assist drop, I think we see Cade as probably a little bit more of a scorer. I think the shots are generally going to come from a little bit maybe further out, or, they're not going to want to try to get into the paint in the same way. I think it just sets up good for Mitch.
So I will then piggyback off of that. My 3-star play is in that game, but I'm actually looking at this in a different way. I'm going to go the Pistons plus 4.5. I think this line has gotten out of hand. Detroit was plus 2.5 48 hours ago. New York took a bunch of money. Now the line's parked at 4.5. Even with those suspensions that we talk about, and I like Joe's look, Mitchell Robinson can hit the over and the Pistons can cover very well. In fact, those two might even be correlated, because we're talking about a close game where Robinson gets involved. But suspensions with Stewart and Duran, that is obviously a huge factor here, but I don't think this number should be much bigger than 3.5 max. The Pistons this season are the number one underdog in the league from a point spread perspective. 9-1 against the spread when listed as a dog. Duran and Beef Stew being out, not ideal, but the Pistons have also gotten by without them before. Duran's already missed 8 games this season. They're 7-1 straight up in those games without him. Beef Stew has missed 4 games this season. Detroit's 3-1 in those games. So those guys not being in is not a direct correlation to them losing games or even getting blown out. So I like the Pistons plus 4.5, as this line is now bloated to the point where I think there should be some buyback on the Pistons. So we gave you 2 looks here, Fiddle. What's the market telling us on the Pistons and some props involved?
So that 2.5, 3.5 money came from me, came from, I think, Joe too.
I knew that you were on the Knicks.
I think I convinced him to take the Knicks too. The pushback that I would give you here is that these teams are even in market ratings, and so then you have a 3-point home court advantage for the Knicks, and then you factor in Duran and Stewart out along with OG Anunoby back. So I actually do think this line should be 4.5, and I think that's where we end up closing. So I don't see much value. I'm not saying bet the Knicks at this number. I don't see much value in that either, but I just do think this is where the price should be.
And it has been parked there for a little while. So clearly the market agreeing with Fiddle there, or vice versa, one and the same. All right, let's go to the 2-star plays. I'll kick us off here with another spread. I get 72 plus hours to think about this stuff. I'm going to lean the way of the spreads, because that is where I do the majority of my NBA betting. So when I have this much time to park on this stuff, I even told myself that this refresh, one of the things that I said I was really going to focus on was limiting my action, increasing the overall bet size, but limiting the volume that I'm betting on the card. And even with that, I still wound up with, I have 5 plays against the spread. We only have 3 stars, so we'll only be talking about 3 of them, but you can go to the Action Network app and follow me at BK Picks if you're curious what the rest of that looks like. But one of them that I fell in love with was the Suns plus 7.5 at the San Antonio Spurs. Much like the Spurs have been the foil of the Thunder, the Suns have quietly been that for the Spurs. 2 matchups so far. Phoenix has won both of them. One without Wemby, but they did win one with Wemby. So it just feels like a nice bloated number, given the fact that San Antonio has covered 7 of the last 10. Phoenix has been a lot less effective lately, but we're still talking about an A+ matchup for the underdog here, as recent history would tell us. And then you get the return of Devin Booker. Likely no Dylan Brooks in this one, but for those two being in and out of the lineup kind of balances the scale in terms of the point spread. If anything, in terms of EPM, it's a significant upgrade getting Booker in and taking Brooks out if you had to switch one for the other. And I really do like how integral Dillon Brooks has been to the defensive effort of Phoenix, but we can't have everything, and that's part of the reason why you're getting a fat number like this. Isaiah Levers is in. Grayson Allen off the injury report as well. So I like Phoenix plus 7.5. Fiddle, any feedback on that? And then hit us with actually, no, Joe, let's go to you because you have a play in this game as well. So give us that and any feedback on the Suns plus the points against the red hot San Antonio Spurs.
Yeah, so I always think that, a lot of these teams, when they're coming out of the break, it does make things a little bit more interesting. And when you look at San Antonio as well, Wemby, De'Aaron Fox, Stephon Castle, and Dylan Harper all participated in All-Star Weekend. So maybe they didn't get the exact same amount of rest they normally would. It's, like one of the, for a lot of them, it's their first opportunity, to really get out there. They're playing, like Wemby was playing pretty hard during these games. Fox hit a couple big shots. Castle looked good too. So, it's not like they had a totally restful time off. Looking at Phoenix, obviously Booker was partaking in All-Star Weekend, but for me, I like Devin Booker over 5.5 assists here. So I think it does tie in with your Suns play quite a bit. In large part, Dillon Brooks is going to be out for this game. So it's another one of those guys who just kind of, I think, is slipping through the radar that he's not going to be playing in this game due to suspension because he picked up his 16th technical foul. And due to that, we're going to see a spike, I think, in Devin Booker's assist rate. So we've seen him so far this season. On the overall, he's averaging about 6 assists per game. So this line, I think at 5.5 is fair generally. And he's averaging 12.8 potentials. Without Dillon Brooks, he's averaging 7.7 assists per game, sees his potentials uptick to 16.2. Couple that with the fact that I actually like the matchup for Booker as well from an assist perspective. It's not that he can't score against San Antonio, but San Antonio, I think, has a lot of really strong point of attack defensive players. And they're really good at forcing the ball out of, lead guards or lead ball handlers' hands. And Booker falls directly into that. So far this season, he's picked up 7 assists against San Antonio. He's also picked up 13. And in the 13 game, he was without Dillon Brooks, and he had 13 assists on 17 potentials. It was a 12-point win. I think that was the game that Wemby might have sat. But either way, I do think that we're getting plenty of opportunity to get the ball out of Booker's hands and into everybody else, because that's really what San Antonio likes to do. They want to cut off your primary scorer, your primary option, say somebody else can beat us. So it's not like Phoenix has poor shooters or poor finishers. I just think that this is a good spot for Devin Booker to go over the 5.5 assist line.
So also one of the things I was looking at with Booker was the points plus assists number. He's had 30 plus PA in 6 of 6 games without Dillon Brooks this season, averaging nearly 40 points plus assists and 16.2 potential assists in those games. Devin Booker has been, if you look at just simply look at his game log, I mean, he's been lighting it up in the assist market in terms of the assist column, but without Brooks, the ball is going to be in his hands even more. So I love that look on Devin Booker. Fiddle, you have anything on this as far as the Spurs leaning into a returning Devin Booker or anything of the sort?
So the reason why I love the Booker stuff is I'll just speak to some Dillon Brooks stuff. His isolation numbers are insanely high. His pass out of isolation rate is incredibly low. So even though he's been very efficient, the old trope that I used to say for Dillon Brooks is like, you got to just choose one, shoot less or make more. He's chosen make more, and he's certainly not shooting any less this year. In fact, he's probably shooting more than ever. But he's been fantastic in isolation sets. It's been like Dillon Brooks and Jaylen Brown, like way above their skis and what you would expect this season in their isolation sets. So yeah, I it's no surprise for me that Devin Booker assist rate goes up and his PA rate goes up because the ball flies around way more on this Phoenix team without Brooks because he's more isolation heavy. And then the one downgrade on Booker this season is he's not really found his shot. And maybe he found that at the 3-point contest during the All-Star break because he was unbelievable. And it's just like, oh, is Booker back? So yeah, I like this look. I could see myself tailing Joe here.
Yep, ditto. So if you were to look at the 10-game slate, I think most people would come to the consensus that if there's one game that you should absolutely steer clear of, it's the tanking Pacers taking on the tanking Washington Wizards. And yet here we have Michael Fiddle running right into the fire. Why are we betting Washington?
Certainly bet it and don't watch it. That's my biggest advice here. But Washington plus 3.5, and on the money line, you could find that probably close to plus 140 the last time that I checked. This should be 2.5 market ratings and model, especially with the clean injury report for the Washington side here, with Sarr coming back, Keyshawn George being off the injury report for the Washington Wizards. So I think they're going to be healthy and playing to go. On the other hand, you look at the Pacers. I can't even say it with a straight face. You look at the Pacers injury report, and they have Siakam out. Played 18 minutes in All-Star weekend. And it's actually what's on the injury report for Siakam. So he's not going to play. We'll see if Nesmith, Nembhard, those guys play. But I think this line should be at 2.5 with the current news. And then, of course, this could fly the other direction. This is the first night of a back-to-back set between these two teams. They're going to play Thursday night and Friday night, both games in Washington. We know the Pacers sit everybody on at least one set of the back-to-back. We'll see what they do if all of them sit at once or they distribute them. But it's just such a knock to the Pacers side that this is a buy on the Wizards with their best young guys going to be active. I think that they're going to play the fourth quarter, given the statements from Silver at the All-Star break, the fines handed out to the Pacers and the Jazz. I think they just know they would suffer the same consequences if they did that stuff on this game right out of the break. And so my general rule of thumb is, if two tanking teams are playing against one another, I prefer to take the home team if I'm going to bet it. I mean, I'm personally willing to bet either side depending on the number. But here we have a good number and the home team. I think you get less of the tanking shenanigans out of the home team in front of their home fans. So Wizards plus 3.5 and on the money line. Sign me up and let me know how the game goes, because I will not be watching it.
Yeah, well, I respect that portion of the opinion. One of my favorite talk about tropes is take the under and go to bed, and this would be the equivalent of that from a money line perspective. If the Wizards are able to take both of the games in this duplex set, which obviously they have very little interest in doing, they would overtake the Pacers where they are in the standings. That would put the Pacers inside of the bottom four. So the Pacers have a real opportunity, a direct path here to getting into the bottom four temporarily by losing both of these games. Obviously, that works both ways, but the Pacers do feel like they're a little more aggressive with it than what the Washington Wizards are. One note that I wrote down in terms of looking at potential post All-Star break edges across the league is betting on tanking teams right out of the break. Now, that doesn't really apply here because both of these teams fit that category, but curious to get your thoughts on this, Fiddle, with Adam Silver starting to lay the hammer down on teams that are being egregious with their tanking. Do you think we see some teams be less obvious with it initially and then maybe eventually get back to their obvious tanking ways?
Yeah, I would assume that happens right coming out of the break, because everyone's in a rested spot. I mean, I think what the Pacers are doing right here is like a little bit egregious, but to each their own. So yeah, I would expect, I think the Jazz are probably the right side in their game against Memphis. You see the rash of injuries and season-ending surgeries to the Kings players hitting the screen now. So the tanking will still be there. Big picture tanking conversation-wise, all of the solutions that people talk about, they're just so unrealistic in the terms of they would never get passed by 25 owners and the NBPA, people saying we should have a free agency. It's like the NBA Players Association is never going to agree with that by saving money for players that they don't represent yet. There's no way tanking teams are going to want to go in a market off against, a number one pick coming in that will always be the tiebreaker. Where do you want to go? Brooklyn or Washington or Memphis? Brooklyn always gets the player in that situation. So I have not seen the answer to tanking yet out there that's realistically going to pass the necessary metrics. So I do think that the best way to do it is Silver just laying down some stern hammers, and I use that word wisely, as he should be heavy-handed in his approach. And I do want to make a quick correction. Sar is out for this game. It was Tristan Vucevic is back, who I actually really like. He's very similar in a floor spacing big, and I think he's a good addition to this Wizards team. Was probably worth more ATS than on paper and in the market.
Yeah, no relation to Nick Vucevic, by the way. Different pronunciation for those keeping track.
Cousins with Sasha?
Maybe you can actually play defense.
Let's go to our 1-star plays on the night. Fiddle, we'll go back to you for a total play.
So here I'm going to go with the Denver Nuggets at the LA Clippers over 225.5. We've seen a little bit of a fight over this number in the early market. I do think late market is going to take this over. My two reasons for this is, one, betting on increased efficiency from the Denver Nuggets. Now, Jokic clearly didn't look like himself coming off of that injury. And then before the All-Star breaks, go back to that Knicks game. I think he was like 1 for 11 from 3. His shooting efficiency markedly dipped going into the All-Star break after he returned. So I think this time off should be good for Jokic, and that shooting will have a positive regression. And then on the Clippers side, they are historically a low-paced team, but they just lost Harden and Zubac. And so I think that eliminates so much of the pick and roll offense, that's slow, steady half-court offense. And you replace that with, a lot more John Collins running in transition, a lot more Brook Lopez on the three-point line. You're getting a lot more of Brook Lopez on defense having to man the fort, and he's just not the paint protector that Zubac is. So I think the efficiency for the Nuggets should increase. I think the pace for the Clippers should increase. This is probably a spot that I'm looking to back Clippers overs if in the right situations for the next few games until the market catches up. But I'm trying to be early on this one. It's starting to get some confirmation in the numbers that this is probably the right direction. So 1-star, 225.5 on the over for Denver and the Clippers.
So interesting there. When you look at the Clippers since they made the trade, they've gone under in each game that they've played. And in their last 3, the under has cashed on the Clippers, and their defense has been awesome. If you look at their last 3 games, which is a very small sample, but still, we
2
don't
of
have
them
a lot.
are against the Rockets, whose offense has been in the absolute gutter as well. Just want to point that out.
Of course, and whenever you talk about a tiny sample, the context is going to matter even more. But they've been a top 4 defense in that span. How much of this has to do with the other side, though? Because Denver, if we're talking about quality of defense, that's where this team is going to fall short if they're not able to reach the mountaintop.
Yeah, both things very true. I think the Clippers should be able to score here. And listen, they're playing more Dunn, Collins. Is Derek Jones Jr. back and still healthy? I know he came back and then got re-injured. I can check on him really quickly. But they're finally leaning into some athleticism, which was the way that they were going away from. They were the oldest team coming into the season. I think Batum is going to be out for this game. So you look at this and you're like, okay, the Clippers finally are going to, play some guys who can run up and down the court a little bit, which is what I think they're going to lean on in the back half of the season. And historically, that's really what Ty Lue prefers to coach and his style of play, that it's more fitting. And it's been just the roster construction that has made him lean into the slow pace. So I actually think we're going to get some creative offensive sets out of the Clippers here. We should play their overs.
And Derek Jones is back with the Clippers. 12 points, a board, 3 assists, 2 block shots in the last game played for the LA Clippers. Any issues with this one, Joe?
No, I think it's great. I'm considering a couple things in there from a prop perspective, because I do think it's going to be a little bit more spaced out in terms of the defense. And Zoo is so good defensively when he's on the court, and obviously the Clippers don't have him anymore. So I think that's a pretty significant impact here.
All right, I want to talk about this car crash that we saw on Twitter today in Uptown Charlotte. LaMelo Ball crashing his, was it a Cybertruck or a Hummer?
A Hummer.
It was a Hummer.
Yeah.
Crashed his Hummer in an intersection. It didn't look like anybody got hurt. The driver of the other vehicle popped right out, looked pretty pissed off about it, as you would imagine.
Yeah.
He got kind of run off the road by LaMelo there. And then, as Fiddle mentioned earlier, we saw an initial rush to the market to bet against the Hornets because of the thought that, well, LaMelo was in a car crash and he's not going to play. Nobody was hurt in this. So unless there's a suspension, which I doubt that this falls under league parameters. I just
maybe like a secondary whiplash thing.
I guess that could be possible, but let's check with the lawyer. Joe, you're taking LaMelo's under. So is the car crash at all correlated to your play?
No, it's not. It's funny though, because I bet this earlier and I got 28.5. So now there's still 27.5s in the market, which is fine. But I do think that there's probably been like a little bit of a rush to bet this because of the car accident. I don't like, sure, maybe he's like a little extra sore, but I don't know. Probably not. I don't think it really matters to me. So I think I would expect him to play. The league does not generally suspend anybody for anything, especially immediately. They usually need to do a review. Like I don't really see a reason that he's not going to play. So especially coming out of the break, and this is a game that, it's a tough game, but it's entirely possible the Hornets can win this one. So for me, I was looking at this 28 or 27.5 on the under points plus assists, in large part. He just doesn't really hit this number over the course of the season. He's over in both games without Miles Bridges, so that is notable. I'll say that. But the two games were against the Warriors on New Year's Eve and against the Hawks. Two teams that I'm not like super convinced about their defense overall. But looking at LaMelo, he's under this line with Brandon Miller and with Khan. He's under in 20 of 34 games. So I think it's a pretty good opportunity here. And then when we look, he just went under this line again against the Rockets the other day, right before the break. 20 points, 4 assists on 11 potentials. The big thing for me in that game was he put up 20 points, but he was 5 for 12 from 3-point range. So LaMelo is always going to chuck, but 5 for 12 is about as good as you're going to do for him in terms of efficiency from beyond the arc. He just is not the most efficient player in the market anyway, right? So I think that, even if he does pick up a little bit more usage with Bridges there, I also think it just means that there's going to be a lot more defensive attention on him because you don't need to worry about Bridges. You can throw some of the better Rockets defenders at him and try to deal with him that way. So the one concern is obviously that Houston has not necessarily been great against pick and roll ball handlers this year from a scoring perspective. But on the flip side, LaMelo, he's really good at diming, really like at the rim and from beyond the arc. That's not necessarily where Houston is allowing their opponents to score. They're really allowing like those mid-range jump shots. And that's kind of a shot that either LaMelo wants to take or it's really like Brandon Miller's taking a lot of those. So I think that there's plenty of opportunity here for LaMelo to just go under this, especially against a Rockets team that has a really good defense. I do have, some concerns looking at, what the way Fiddle was looking at it, saying that he likes it as a little bit more of an over spot. But at the same time, if this is a boat race where Houston just kind of rolls through them because they're rested, feeling good, despite some of the Kevin Durant drama, then there's other opportunities for an under here as well for LaMelo.
And clearly, both of these can still get home, but what I like is a nice little hedge here is that one of you ought to hit this, so we guarantee ourselves at least a star and a half based on the way that this could go. Also worth mentioning that if LaMelo Ball has to miss the game because of whiplash in his Hummer, bad day to have Hummer stock. Okay, isn't that the whole point of having a Hummer? Is that if you hit something, you're good?
You would think. So I will say that
it's a fucking tank. You ought to be fine.
Did you hear the amount of puns that Joe had in his cap? He's like talking about he's taking a LaMelo under. He's talking about off-ball stuff, and he's talking about a boat race here. I'm gonna add one to the mix. His CLV on that 28.5, now 27.5, because the car is no longer a vehicle. That'll be CLV.
The wheels are off here,
Yeah. It's not CLV, it's a Humvee. Yeah. All right. I get that rim shot again, David? No, we're good. All right, we're gonna go 1-star play. Kings plus Crickets. It's getting late over here. I think that might be the Florida Bugs chiming in. I'm going to go Kings plus 5.5 first half against the Magic. The Magic losing Franz is huge. Equally big is Sabonis being out for Sacramento. So if I've been looking at this line for a couple of days, and if you had the Kings plus 11, chef's kiss to you. But anything south of 9.5, I wouldn't touch it on the Kings side. And the Magic feel virtually unplayable without Franz. They've been struggling to cover against teams like Utah, New Orleans, Brooklyn in recent games. But the first half, to me, is a very playable angle if you want to fade the Magic here. Orlando is 3-7 against the spread in the first half in their last 10 games. And I think in general, with these teams that are in tank mode, it's the end of games that you have to worry about. That's where they're going to pull back a little bit. And I don't think teams in general, coming out of the break, as I mentioned before, are going to be quite as egregious, but still very well could be. And they've already taken Sabonis out of the equation as well. The Magic struggle to defend guards. They allow the most points in the NBA to the guard position. If you want to look the way of a Russell Westbrook over, I wouldn't hate you for that either. Monk and Westbrook should get cooking early. So I think first half is the way to play Sacramento here at plus 5.5. Let's recap the plays real quick. We've got Pistons plus 4.5 from yours truly. That's my 3-star play of the night. Suns plus 7.5, my 2-star play as they take on the red hot San Antonio Spurs, and the Kings first half plus 5.5 against the Magic. Joe Dellera has Mitchell Robinson, Mitch Rob over 7.5 rebounds, Devin Booker over 5.5 assists, LaMelo Ball under 27.5 points and assists. And Michael Fiddle is on the Hornets, Rockets over 215.5, Wizards plus 3.5, and a little sprinkle on the plus 140 money line. And the 1-star play, the Nuggets and the Clippers over 225.5. Real quick before we dip out, this one from Free Sauce 224 in the comments. Fiddle said there are no good ideas that he has heard or seen in regards to eliminating the tanking in the NBA. I would like to usher in another bad idea to the mix here. The answer to tanking is the play out, a tournament where the winner has more balls to secure the first pick than others. Now, maybe he's joking in here. There's an LMAO within that comment. Why in the world? Because I've seen this idea shared by a number of NBA fans. Guys, why would a team full of players who sucked play harder so that they could get a top pick?
Who can then have the usage, the contract, the whole organization shift towards them. They're not even on the team. Why are the owners going to agree to that? Why would the owners make it a talent competition when the whole idea is you want to be able to get better when you're worse? Can I actually give you my favorite tanking solution that I have not heard anywhere?
Yes.
I know Joe's a WNBA fan. Brandon, you a WNBA fan?
No.
They do their draft order based on combining 2 seasons record in terms of reverse order. So what if you made it based on 2 years record? Therefore, if you're committing to a tank, you're making that last for 2 years. You're pre-committing to being bad for a prolonged period of time. When then if you're like the Pacers where you just made the finals last year, you don't really have the option to tank off like an injury situation and fly to the bottom, steal a great pick, and then fly your way back to the top. You're putting so much onus, and you're actually doing it more on a talent disadvantage thing if you make it a 2-year combined record lottery ordering. I'm not saying it's just who has the worst record, but then determine the lottery odds by combining 2 years record, because less teams will be willing to commit to doing this for back-to-back years. And that's really how you have to start it off.
But isn't that also part of the problem, is that we are seeing teams that get stuck in this mode of my only way out of this abyss is to tank, and so we're just going to do it every year until, I mean, that is the process. That's what the 76ers did until they got Joel Embiid, and then even continued thereafter for a short while.
Yeah.
I just think it would curb it a little bit. Yeah.
It's just really tough, I think, no matter how you cut it, because these small market teams, especially, like, you're just not getting free agents. It's unrealistic. And the only times we're really seeing some of these small market teams get those like really quality free agents because they have a superstar that they drafted, like a homegrown superstar. At the same time, though, if you look at it, well, like, Cleveland, not necessarily a destination besides the fact that LeBron James is from Ohio, right? For those years, but they made the move. They traded for Donovan Mitchell, and then they're like, money talks. That's the way the CBA works. And they paid him a ton of money. So you do have ownership that can finagle their way through like being in maybe like not the most enticing city. So there are ways to do it, but so I don't love tanking, but at the same time, I don't really know what the right solution is to try to help some of these other teams that aren't in like the LAs or the New Yorks or even, like one of the Florida teams or something like that.
I like what Mark Cuban said. He said, forget about tanking. The tickets are too expensive. That was his general.
I love that.
I do too. Cause it's like, Mark, I love where you're coming from, but you have entered a completely different discussion than the one that we're trying to have over here. But
right.
He's trying to devalue the Mavs ticket prices so that he could rebuy the team.
I mean, he's a billionaire for a reason. Before we get out of here, it's time for our Thursday night NBA parlay. We're going to make it nice and simple for you. We're just going to take our three-star plays from buckets tonight, throw them into a parlay. Pistons plus 4.5, Mitch Robb over 7.5 rebounds, and then Hornets Rockets over 215.5 plus 690. Best price out there. That is our Thursday night NBA parlay. And that'll do it for us here on Buckets tonight. If you want to tail any of the bets, look for the quick slip link in the podcast and video description, or go to actionnetwork.com/bet now. Shout out to the crew, Joe Dellera, Michael Fiddle, hat tip to our producer, David Payne. We'll see all of you tomorrow. And until then, let's get buckets. It's good.